Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at something that is, honestly, a fascinating and almost jarring contrast. On one side, we have a revelation that came down in the Arabian desert back in the 7th century, ancient words detailing creation, knowledge, and the last days. And on the flip side, we have the 21st century reality of artificial intelligence. We are literally talking about something humanity has created that it cannot fully control, something that learns, that speaks, that sees, and that is starting to simulate life itself. We're going to explore exactly how these two immense forces intersect.
Okay, let's dive into this. We are looking at an incredible tension here. We're comparing humanity's ancient divine commands directly against our modern creation of tools. We've built machines that simulate intelligence and process just unfathomable amounts of data, right? But the really profound question the sources raise is this. Could it be that what the Prophet Muhammad described 14 centuries ago directly relates to what we're witnessing right now with AI?
To really wrap our heads around the Islamic perspective on this kind of technology, we've got to start at the very beginning of the religion. The absolute first word revealed to the Prophet Muhammad was not a command to pray. It wasn't a command to fast. It was Iqra, which translates to read or acquire knowledge. This completely anchors a historically fearless pursuit of science. Islam was born with a direct, absolute command to learn and to seek out understanding.
In fact, there are over 750 verses in the Quran that directly talk about thinking, reasoning, observing, and reflecting. Over and over again, the text asks the reader, "Will you not use your reason?" This wasn't just some passive suggestion, you know? Seeking knowledge was framed as a fundamental obligation for every single believer. And it's the very reason why, for centuries, the Muslim world led humanity in science, astronomy, and mathematics.
And this brilliantly illustrates the link between that ancient intellectual tradition and what we're talking about today. Think about the Islamic Golden Age. The scholar Al-Khwarizmi literally gave the world algebra. In fact, the very word algorithm, which is the foundational engine of every single AI system on Earth today, is derived directly from his name. So Islam commanded the relentless pursuit of knowledge, but as we'll see, it also heavily warned against using it without wisdom, without ethics, and without God.
Which brings us to a really crucial pause. Before we go any further, I want you to just ask yourself a profound question. What actually separates a human being from a highly advanced machine? Because as AI systems master language, write poetry, generate breathtaking art, and make incredibly complex decisions, the line between human and machine seems to get blurrier every day. Where is the actual boundary?
Well, according to Islamic sources, that boundary is drawn very clearly. Listen to this verse from Surah Al-Isra. They ask you about the soul. Say, "The soul is of the affair of my Lord, and you have not been given of knowledge except a little." While humanity can build these massive, complex systems trained on all written human knowledge, this text establishes the ultimate line. Humanity can only simulate intelligence. Only the Creator can create a soul.
This concept is known as the Ruh, the divine spirit. The Quran talks about it being breathed into Adam, and it's literally what separates humanity from every other creation out there. So the most crucial point here is that AI systems, no matter how remarkably advanced or beautifully conversational they become, completely lack a ruh. They are not conscious, they do not have a soul, they don't pray, and they definitely do not fear a higher power. They only execute programming.
If we forget that vital distinction, we risk essentially worshiping what our own hands have built. And this takes us into some of the most serious prophetic warnings about the last hour. According to Islamic tradition, the Prophet warned about the coming of al-Masih ad-Dajjal, or the false Messiah, more than any other single sign. This is described as a being of completely unprecedented power, capable of deceiving nearly all of humanity.
When you read the descriptions of the Dajjal in the texts, they are incredibly specific and, frankly, deeply unsettling. We're talking about an entity that travels the earth at the speed of rain driven by wind. He claims absolute divinity. He commands the sky to rain and the earth to bring forth provision, effectively controlling human access to food, water, and massive amounts of wealth.
Now, what's really chilling about this is how perfectly those ancient descriptions mirror our modern AI-driven society. I mean, think about it. Today, AI generates deep-fake videos and clones human voices in seconds that are totally indistinguishable from reality. On top of that, opaque algorithms now control global credit systems, advanced weather modeling, and massive agricultural food distribution networks. The power to control reality and provision is rapidly shifting directly to these systems.
Now, just to be completely clear here, scholars do differ on the exact interpretation, and we want to look at this impartially. AI itself is not considered to be the Dajjal. Traditional texts describe him as a specific individual whose arrival happens before Isa. However, scholars are asking a really fascinating question. Is an AI-addicted humanity, entirely dependent on algorithms and unable to distinguish truth from deepfakes, being primed for this ultimate deception? Are these systems becoming the tools that prepare the world for his arrival?
This brings us to the concept of fitna, which translates to trials and tribulations. The Prophet warned of a fitna so severe that a person could wake up a believer and go to sleep a disbeliever. Contemporary scholars point out that AI presents an entirely new kind of fitna. This isn't just a trial of wealth or physical safety, it is a profound trial of the mind and the intellect, known as the aql. It's the distinct, creeping danger of letting an algorithm think for us.
This tension becomes totally undeniable when we think about how we actually acquire knowledge. On one side, you have a traditional Islamic scholar who possesses a verifiable chain of transmission, spiritual consciousness, and deep contextual understanding. On the other side, an AI chatbot that simply aggregates text and mathematically predicts the next probable word. When people ask ChatGPT for religious rulings instead of seeking real scholars, they are relying on a machine that fundamentally lacks a soul and spiritual understanding. A simulation of light can still lead you right into darkness.
This point is heavily underscored by a very famous hadith. Allah does not take away knowledge by snatching it from people, but He takes away knowledge by taking away the scholars. We have to remember, artificial intelligence does not and cannot replace scholars. It merely simulates them based on scraped data. True knowledge, in the Islamic tradition, requires a human connection, lived experience, and a human soul.
But hey, the intellectual danger isn't the only risk we're facing. We have to look at the physical reality too. Specifically, zulm, which means oppression, and fasad, which is corruption. The Quran strictly warns against committing corruption upon the earth after it has been set in order. And this ancient warning is colliding directly with the terrifying modern reality of warfare, where powerful militaries are currently racing to build autonomous AI weapon systems.
You see, traditional Islamic rules of warfare have incredibly strict ethical boundaries. Non-combatants and prisoners have to be protected. Indiscriminate destruction of crops and homes, totally forbidden. But autonomous AI weapons, they execute their programming without a conscience, without any human approval, and absolutely without any fear of God. They are emotionless machines programmed by those in power, increasingly making life and death decisions out on the battlefield.
So when a machine, programmed by the powerful, drops a bomb on a village, who is held accountable before the Creator? I really want to pause right here and just let the gravity of that sink in. AI does not have a soul. It has zero moral compass. Using it to autonomously execute warfare entirely removes the human conscience from the act of taking a life, which scholars warn is a direct, fast track to the ultimate oppression and corruption on earth.
All right, shifting gears just a bit, the Islamic sources also contain some highly specific predictions regarding technology. Take this incredible hadith outlining a minor sign of the hour. The Prophet said, "The hour will not come until a man's thigh speaks to him about what his family is doing at home, a man's whip will speak to him, and the sole of his shoe will tell him." I mean, it is genuinely amazing that a 1400-year-old text explicitly mentioned a speaking thigh. For centuries, this was largely interpreted by scholars as just a metaphor for gossip.
Well, let's move on and see how this interpretation has evolved over time, because it is wild. We go from a 7th century description of objects speaking to a 20th century interpretation of it as a metaphor, right to our exact 21st century reality. Today, we literally wear fitness trackers on our thighs and carry phones in our pockets that speak to us. Through smart home cameras and voice assistants, they literally tell us what our family is doing at home. It's a stunningly precise description of the modern Internet of Things.
So with all of this in mind, how does the tradition actually say we should respond? Well, Islam doesn't ask its followers to be terrified of technology, but rather to master it with profound accountability. This practical ethical framework gives us a solid guide. Amana means trust and responsibility for the engineers building these systems. Mizan demands balance and justice, ensuring tech actually serves all of humanity. Hispa requires strict accountability and oversight so no system goes unchecked. And tawakkul is the ultimate trust in Allah, remembering who is truly in control of the future.
Navigating this new age really requires guarding two crucial elements: your aql, which is your intellect, and your iman, which is your faith. The sources urge us to hold to our principles, seek real knowledge from real human scholars, and critically,
to always ensure that technology is utilized as a servant to humanity and never allowed to become a master over it.
As we start to wrap up this explainer, I want to slow down for a second and just focus on a really simple but incredibly profound truth. A machine cannot make sujood. It cannot prostrate. An AI, no matter how many trillions of parameters it's trained on, cannot feel the absolute stillness of the early morning. It cannot weep in the night. It cannot long for its creator. But human beings can. And that is something no technology can ever replicate.
I'm going to leave you with this really powerful verse from Surah Yusuf, but over every possessor of knowledge is one more knowing. As we step into an unprecedented era where our own creations just keep growing smarter by the day, the ultimate question remains: will humanity become blinded by its own artificial intelligence, or will we remember the ultimate creator? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep reflecting and keep learning.